Hello and welcome to Got Clutter, Get Organized, the conversation. I can't tell you how excited I am because I have a fellow podcaster, Wendy Battles, and it's Reinvention Rebels is her podcast. So we're going to talk about that. But also I thought there was a great conversation for us to have because of course we're in March and it is, we celebrate women's history, but then also because of spring. Like, is there something you need to kind of get out the way that's making you stuck so you can't move forward? So, Wendy, thank you so much for joining us.
Janet, thank you. I'm so excited. Just like you, I've been looking forward to our conversation. And, ooh, girl, we got a lot to talk about.
Yes, we do. So, I want to start with what made you decide to do your podcast?
Such a great question. And to be honest with you, the decision came from within. And when I say that, what I mean is that it was this fall of 2019. So I'm trying to think back. I'm like, that was a while ago. It was the fall of 2019. I was on yet another mission to figure out what am I meant to do with my life, something I've thought about at different points in my life. And I started really leaning into there's got to be something that I'm really good at where I could add value and add my voice to the world. And I was doing a lot of meditation. And one day, Janet, one day I heard two words when I was meditating: Reinvention Rebels. I was like, what? Reinvention Rebels. And you know how sometimes you have the wisdom to know you should write something down? Strikes you as like, I should, because sometimes I don't remember. And in the morning, I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
what was that thing?
Mm-hmm.
That was such a great idea last night that I have no clue what it was now. So I just leaned into that. And I realized over time that it was a podcast. And that was the genesis for me starting the podcast, which debuted in October of 2020. So it took me like a whole year, pandemic, all those things to really figure out how to start a podcast. But that was how it started. And it was really my desire to want to inspire and activate midlife women in particular to think bigger about what could be possible in their lives, to see new possibilities, to push through the fears that sometimes hold us back, and to really step onto center stage and decide, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to start living on purpose in new and expansive ways. And that is really what inspired me to start it.
So, that takes me to my first question. What really gets in the way of us really stepping into? What keeps us just stuck in the old and not really stepping into who we are?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that can keep us stuck. I think one is fear. It could be fear of failure. What if I try this and I fall flat on my face and it's like I should never have tried it? Or maybe it's fear of success. Well, what could happen? I mean, if I really did this thing that I say I want to do, maybe my life will change in some way or it will be different. And I think that can be scary. I think, related to this idea of fear, it's often being concerned about others' opinions. And, well, for someone might say, well, who are you to do that? Maybe that's their own fear speaking, like they wanted to do it, but they project that onto you. So I think that sometimes we're worried about what people might say, especially if we're changing as a part of
Mm.
this, whether it's our family, our kids, our spouse, our coworkers, our friends, it could be anybody. But I think that we can be influenced by people that are naysayers or aren't necessarily our cheerleaders. And I think the third thing is that we have spent so much time as women generally being caregivers, nurturers, putting everybody else's needs before our own, which is just like whether you have kids or not, married or not. I think that that's just a typical female behavior. We're socialized to be those people. And often it's so unconscious, but we are in such a rhythm of putting other people's goals and priorities. We want to see our kids shine.
Yeah.
Who doesn't want to see their child, do their best and thrive? So I understand why we do those things, but, and this might be relatable, but it's often at the expense of our own dreams, our own priorities, other things that are important to us. And I think that when we can change that narrative, we can find a way to prioritize ourselves. And it doesn't mean other people aren't important, but to
Mm-hmm.
say, my dreams matter too, Janet. My dreams matter, and I want to focus on those as well as other people's. Or maybe just decide right now, it's Wendy time. I
Mm-hmm.
just got to put the focus on
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
me for a
Mm-hmm.
change.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that can definitely happen.
And I agree with you because, like you said, we are the nurturers, we are the caregivers. Everybody else is on the top of our list, and we're not sometimes even on the list. So, but you're right. It's like, you know what? Like you said, it's time for me. It is time for me. And I think sometimes that is a fear in some different ways. It comes up, it forms up. Oh, I can't do it. Oh, I don't have this. I don't have that. And like, you know, because I'm working with your clients, is sometimes we have everything we need within us.
Yes.
So you're right. It's
Yes,
yes. So
yes, yes. And to your point about that, I think, again, this is generalizing women, but I feel like I see this in myself and I see it also in other women, this idea of perfection. Like, well, I'll start when I have everything in place
mm-hmm,
or all the, things are lined up. And sometimes, just like with this podcast, and I don't know about your experience, but I didn't know everything about podcasting when I started. I just said, well, I mean, because of course I do it differently. Like, I'd have a lot more episodes at the beginning if I, knowing what I know now, girl. But at the time, I embraced this idea of progress over perfection. I just said, you know what? I have this idea,
mm-hmm,
and I did, did some work to kind of get ready, and I took this course and all this stuff. But I just said, I got to just get out there and do it. That was the
mm-hmm,
whole thing, is just start. Don't
mm-hmm,
wait. Just
mm-hmm,
get started. And I think that when we can, begin to take on more of that mindset, it's really helpful for all
mm-hmm.
of us.
Mm-hmm. And you're right. You're right. I mean, like you said, just do it. It's sometimes, and you don't do it. I mean, I think I changed when I was doing podcasts in the beginning. I think I did monthly and then I just stopped and then I resumed. So you're right. And it's not about perfection. I think it is about really moving forward. And one of the things that I realized about myself, I was always like the shy, quiet, didn't want to say anything. But I realized, and when I was getting prepared for our conversation, is I stepped out in like the uncomfortable when I did have to take care of my mother because I was her only child. I never really thought, Wendy, I could take care of anybody because it was like I was always focused on my career. I didn't have children, I didn't have a spouse. But then when I did that, I found out I had a voice because I
Mm.
realized, of course, when you're doing that and people want to do like that, well, this is what we want to do and this is what we want to do. And I had to step up and I'm like, no, this is my mother here. This is how this plan is going to work out, and several times I had to just go toe to toe with people. So, but I didn't know what I was doing. It wasn't like I had a handbook. I just like day to day. So you're right. Sometimes you do have to step into it with a podcast, with a business, with whatever you're doing. Sometimes even with parenting and just taking care of a pet. You got to just step into it.
Right.
So for someone listening to you, what can we do maybe to take a step? Because I think sometimes if you say, well, you got to do this, this, and this, people just get overwhelmed, just like organizers. Just like, you need to, let's tackle the closet. Let's take one thing out. But what's a step somebody can take, Wendy, who's just like, you know what? I want to lean into being that rebel in 2025. What can I do?
I love it. That's a great question. And I'm going to suggest three small things. Three small things. One is to get curious.
Mm,
Get curious. What inspires you? What do you love to do? What do you wish you had always learned? Like maybe you wanted to play an instrument and you never had the chance to as a kid. Well, why not start taking piano lessons or learn how to swing dance or start skiing, whatever it is, start going on a solo trip. You always wanted to go on a trip just by yourself or you want to challenge yourself. So I would say start with this idea. What sparks your curiosity as one thing? The second thing I would say is to do things that are really fun.
mm,
I think that when we can play, when we can get out of our heads into our bodies, when we can detach from all the social media and being so connected to tech as most of us are, and actually do things that bring us joy, whatever they are, that can spark ideas. And I think this is all about how we spark ideas, how we, are open to what could be possible, because sometimes it's not even in our realm of possibility. We're not even thinking, sometimes we don't even know. But that could, help us find some of those things. And the third thing I'll say is to talk to other people and form your reinvention squad. It could be anybody. It could be, people you trust, people that believe in you, people that will encourage you. I'm not talking about the naysayers, because we can all find those people, but the people who are like, Janet, you have a dream. I believe in you. Those are the people I'm talking about, because we can bounce ideas off of them. We can ask them for advice. We can ask them to talk us down when we're thinking, it seemed like a good idea at the time, but now I don't even know, right? Sometimes we lose confidence in ourselves, so they can help us with that. So I think that those are all ways that we can begin to spark something. And what I also often tell people too is to check out this free gift I have, which is called 100 Ways to Reinvent in Midlife, which is literally 100 different ideas, because sometimes I can't think of things myself. Sometimes I need help, right? This is all about this idea of it's all surrounded around this whole theme of ask for help. And that help comes in so many different forms, Janet, as you know, like I need help from an organizer. I need someone to help me figure out how to make my life make more sense. Or I need help from a reinvention expert who can motivate me into action, right? Whoever that person is that could help you, asking for help. So that's just one way, is through this list of 100 ideas, just to spark curiosity, because it's a list of all kinds of things you wouldn't even have thought about, just to kind of plant some seeds. And then from there, we can all start to think about, okay, maybe I could try these 2 or 3 things and just test them out. Because I also think we try things, some things work out, some things don't. And midlife to me is all about exploration, taking chances, trying new things. And if it doesn't work, I can easily pivot to something else.
I love that. I love to get curious, do something fun, talk to other people. And I didn't realize, Wendy, I do have a reinvention squad. We meet every Thursday virtually, and we're always bouncing ideas off of each other, changing this, doing that. I mean, personal and professional as well. But also, one thing I discovered, Wendy, is I have a friend and she's very outdoorsy. Well, I just wanted to like reconnect with her and I got curious. I actually went on my first hike. I didn't even think I would like going on a hike. I did it in 2024, but I did it. And now it's like I'm looking forward to the next one because she's really goes out and we can walk for almost hours. So I
Love
like that.
it.
So, yeah, so
I
thank you
love
so
it.
much.
I mean, you're a great example of someone who is doing all those things, trying new things, getting curious, having your squad, asking for help, pivoting, right? I love that. Janet, you are a great example
Well,
of a
thank you.
reinvention rebel, as you're going to talk about on my podcast.
Thank you. And yes, I will. So, my question to you, because you do the podcast, and I always see sometimes you're just out there having fun, Wendy, on social media. How do you like manage your time or just like stay organized? How do you do it?
That's a great question. And I will say that I do my best, and there's always room for improvement in that area when it comes to organizing. But I will say this, I make things that are important a priority. So that's the first, for me, important part of managing my time and being organized. And with the podcast, because I do have a full-time job, and it takes a long time, as you know, to produce a podcast,
Oh, yes, it does.
all the different aspects of it. So I get up every day during the week at 4:45. I get organized by meditating in the morning first, clearing my mind, getting quiet before I start work. Like today was a great example. I feel so good today. When I invest in myself and that time, it really does pay off. And then I spend a certain amount of time on it every morning. So I'll spend from roughly 5:30 to 7:30 or 6 to 8. So it's time blocked. So I like time blocks to help me manage my time. So on any given day, I'll spend 2 to 3 hours working on the podcast because it might also be like time at lunch. I might take my lunch hour, depending on the day. Other times I'm out walking and exercising, so it depends what's most important. But I really need time blocking to help me stay on track. And even with that, to be honest with you, it bleeds into other things because I can't just fit it all in necessarily 3 hours.
I
So it kind of,
understand.
bleeds into the weekends. I do social media like at lunchtime or after work. So find a way to make it work. But I will also tell you, Janet, because I'm a work in progress,
We all are, Wendy. We
right?
all are.
I like to live out loud, as I like to say.
Mm-hmm.
So which means I sometimes have stuff all over. So some parts of my life are super organized, but it also means that I would benefit from spending time organizing some other things as well. I need some more time blocks around other things too.
And you know what? You're not alone, Wendy. You are not alone.
Thank
So,
you.
how can people connect with you, listen to your podcast?
Oh my gosh, so many different ways. The podcast is available on all the usual podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, all the different listening apps like Good Pods. You can also go to my website, which is reinventionrebels.com, and find it there. You can find me all over social media. I spend most of my time on Instagram, which is where I see you, Janet, and I am at Reinvention Rebels. And of course, you can sign up for my free gift, my 100 Ways to Reinvent Yourself in Midlife, for ideas. So lots of different ways to find me, and you can find that on my website.
And of course, those of you watching and listening, I will have the links available on the show page so you can connect directly with Wendy. Well, Wendy, this has been a wonderful conversation. I'm so glad we finally got to connect.
Me too. This was awesome. Thank you so much, Janet. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you again, Wendy. And of course, I look forward to talking to you soon on your podcast.
I cannot wait.